we've got to talk about what I think is honestly, the guy's not going to pat himself on the back, but this was a really this was a strong pursuit of transparency through the eyes of Brandon Thurston, who sought out information related to the 2023 Royal Rumble from the city of San Antonio, where they hosted the Royal Rumble event at the Alamo Dome a year and a half ago. And Brandon, how shortly after this event did you first seek out records for this event?
I sent a records request, I believe that night, to the
So,
city of San Antonio, which it occurred to me that that would be the appropriate party to send a public records request to, because the Alamo Dome is owned and operated by the city of San Antonio.
so this began around 18 months ago for Brandon. In April of 2023, there was an initial ruling that you were not going to have access to this information, correct? Through the city's objection?
Yes, this is really the Super Bowl of wrestling journalism here that we're about to walk through, and I think and by the way, there appears to be a problem with our view counter, because this is like I'm sure there's like 120 million people watching right now, not the 700 and some odd that we got here. So they did rule initially, and they did credit to them, they did comply with the law and released to me some of the records that I was requesting, and we got a substantial report out of that in terms of reporting that it was a $7.3 million gate for Royal Rumble in 2023. Over 40,000 tickets sold, average ticket price $164. We got emails showing a W employee, really urging the city employees to give them more numbers so they could have a bigger attendance to announce the infamous heartbeat count and all of that. So we did get a substantial amount of information from them, but what we didn't get was the site fee that that W executives, TKO executives have been talking about is such a big growth opportunity for them. Which is, this often happens now, since I've done a number of requests to the Texas to various Texas entities. They will claim that some of the information that you're requesting, yeah, that can be released, but there's this other information that we want to check with the Attorney General and see if we can withhold that under the number of exceptions that are in the public records law in Texas. And it's always a different records law in all these states for the most part. Some even have a city level. I think the Troy, Ohio request had city level laws. But anyway, they did rule that, yeah, you can withhold this because it's a trade secret. And this was the city itself submitting this request for review. WWE was not pushing to withhold it, but was the city was basically saying, "Oh, WWE might. They are reserving the right to object to this." But the city did request it, and the city got approval to withhold this particular record.
So at this point in April, I mean, Brandon, you're probably thinking, man, there's a chance maybe WWE is going to step in and say, no, 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 give these to Brandon. I mean, he needs to know this. What Brandon was seeking was the attendance, sales, and communications between the city and WWE. So this comes out April 2023, and it's appearing that you are not going to get access to the information you have requested. Now,
Yes.
someone, the mysterious entity that I know you have tried to find the identity of. Another entity also sought out this information. This, we believe, not a journalist, but rather this was a company that may or may not have been related to a lawsuit involving WWE that was seeking these records as well.
Yeah, so there's some firm called Intelligence Options that it looks like was doing research for one of WWE's one of the WWE lawsuits that was happening at the time. I think it's most likely that it was the antitrust lawsuit that MLW had filed against WWE. I did ask in February Court Bauer whether he knew anything about it. He didn't. I think it's possible he just didn't know anything about it. He's not maybe intimately involved in all the details that were involved in that antitrust lawsuit, as Caswitz Benson Torres was defending them. But it just makes the most sense because they were seeking the request was seeking leases and contracts and things like that. That would have made sense if you're building a case of antitrust violation against WWE, and it's consistent with the description that this lawsuit was settled at the point at which this was reviewed again, and the ruling was reversed. The ruling for me was reversed and saying, yes, you do have to release this contract that will reveal the site fee and all of that. And they said that, well, this lawsuit has been settled now, so it's that this party doesn't need it. Obviously, it's moot. So it was left to me to say, well, yeah, I do still want it.
And they did give you the option to just walk away, and you said no. I would like this information, and things proceeded because the office of the attorney general, they ended up reversing the initial decision, correct? And thus this was like a 180 where now they were in conflict with the city of San Antonio and WWE, who would file a complaint to try and block this information from coming out. And that's where you've been at the standstill for the last number of months. And we were wondering if Attorney General Ken Paxton was even going to respond to this complaint. And he waited right until the buzzer was about to go and made his response. And the lawsuit is still ongoing that WWE filed, but this past Friday, your inbox was populated by a number of documents that came your way. So we don't exactly know now what is WWE fighting, but this lawsuit is still ongoing, correct?
It's this. The docket is still here, and there's no like voluntary dismissal or something like that. And so to be clear, exactly what happened here is that it's this lawsuit that they filed was to stop the city from being forced to release the document, the contract. Let's talk about the contract, which is basically what this new report is about. This was to stop them from having the city from having to release the contract between WWE and the city. And as I did more research and understood more about Texas public records law and the Texas Event Trust Program, which WWE used for WrestleMania in 2022, which WWE used, well, the LOC, the local organizing committee used to attract WWE to bring WrestleMania to the Dallas Arlington area. They have this program in Texas that, if you apply to the state government and say, we're going to bring this great event that's going to have all this positive economic impact to the local area, the state government will help you pay for that event. So as I was going through that and learning more, I realized, well, the city has the contract, but they're probably not the only party that has the contract, because if you're trying to attract the Royal Rumble, you may be willing to use local city funds to promise an incentive or a site fee. But what you would probably do if you're the city of San Antonio is you would turn to the state government and say, I want to use the event trust program where the state government will help me, get even more money to attract WWE with. So I figured, well, the office of the governor, naturally, as one always realizes, the office of the governor probably has a copy of this contract as well, because you have to present all of these records to the state government to say this is what we're paying for. So it's all properly justified. So by the time this lawsuit had happened, I said, well, let's see what happens if I request the office of the governor. And I was transparent. I wasn't trying to pull a fast one. I wrote right in the request, look, there's a lawsuit happening. Here's the case number. So the office of the governor was requested by me to release that information to me. And of course, that went to Attorney General review also. And everybody put their arguments in. The city of San Antonio objected, and WWE objected, and the office of the governor objected. But the Attorney General finally ruled on July 25th that no, you do have to release certain information. And some of this is obscured to me because they're referring to various attachments which are withheld from me as the requester, because naturally that's the review process. If I saw them, it would essentially be releasing them to me. So they're referring to these exhibits and these attachments. So I can't quite tell what they're referring to. Some things are still being allowed to be withheld. I can't tell you what those things are because I just haven't seen and I don't know. But the Attorney General did rule that certain information had to be released to me. That was on July 25th. I did not. It's not like the Attorney General emailed me and said, yes, we have ruled this. I was just looking through the Attorney General's review database and trying to find my issue, and I found
Paxton didn't send you a DM, say, hey, what's
Ken
up, Brandon?
Ken didn't send me one. But I found it like 4 days later on the 29th, I think. And so I emailed the public records person with the office of the governor right away. I was like, please send me this stuff. And they replied a few days later saying, okay, we will by August 8th. August 8th arrived, and I received another email from one Kieran Hillis saying that, oh, wait, actually, we have to check with the AG again for clarification to make sure it's legal to release this to you. And and I believe, if my understanding of the law is correct, they have 30 days from the AG's ruling within which they have to release this information, or somebody's got to sue and intervene to stop this, which they could have done. The Office of the Governor could have done. The city maybe could have done. WWE could have done again, but nobody did that. And then on the 25th, which was Friday, I finally got a PDF. Well, what I got was basically like a Dropbox link. It was not Dropbox, but it was some other Dropbox like thing, and I had to like sign up for a free trial and go through more friction. But finally, I did download this PDF, and then we do have the contract, which we'll show on the screen here. If I told John when I got it, I should probably frame this and put it on the wall.
Yeah, you're going to need 17 frames to put this on multiple walls, it looks like.
Yes, but so why is this? As people have inquired with me politely, of course, only. Why do you care about this? Why is this important at all? We do know. Here's the information that we learned. The site fee was $250,000 cash, but in addition to that, San Antonio also, with help from the state government, provided over $500,000 of incentives in total because they basically allowed them to use the venue for free. They paid for various services and labor that was associated with running the Royal Rumble. They claim actually Tampa claimed the next year that the economic impact was $69 million. So the response is that, look, they got a many times return on their investment for the local economy. It seems quite likely. It's hard to debate that, even just looking at what the incremental hotel use would be and the luxury tax that's involved with that this is probably a very profitable return on investment for the city and the local area. And I think I think the real question here is, what was W trying to do by suing? What was the benefit for WWE to sue the AG to try to withhold this? And I think it's probably to try to create a precedent so that there could be less transparency around what the prices for these kinds of events are, so that they could get a better price, a higher price for themselves in the future, and maybe delaying and obfuscating what the deal was with San Antonio. Maybe that helps them make a deal with Indiana. I don't know, because the deal with Indiana for various PLEs was made in the meantime throughout all this. But I think maybe most of all, it was worth maybe tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees that they paid to Holland Knight, who was their law firm for this. It was probably worth the shot to try to create a legal precedent that you could say in future cases like this, hey, look, the Texas case over here ruled that this does qualify for this exemption and this exemption, and your exemption is very similarly worded. We get to withhold this. And there's still a lawsuit here, so they could still try to, maybe that's why the lawsuit is still worth fighting. I did ask WB, I did ask W's lawyer for this case, and got no responses.
Yeah, and to also clarify for those that maybe haven't followed this in grand detail, and who isn't, Brandon was not sued in the middle of this. They were attempting to stop this information from getting to Brandon, but the argument that WWE made on behalf of Chris Legental was in the complaint: if this information was made publicly available and Brandon Thurston was permitted to publicize our financial information and negotiated terms on Wrestlenomics, WWE would lose our bargaining power in negotiating all of our live events and much of the value of a bidding process for venues. So my question to you, Brandon, is, do you see that as a argument that could impact WWE, or were you thinking...
Words of Murray Hodgson, I don't buy it. Or was I thinking what?
That you don't buy it.
The words of Murray Hodgson. Does this impact them? I guess they must think it is, because it will. They must think it's worth pursuing in some regard, because they spent, lawyers aren't cheap or free. I'm sure they spent thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars to have a lawyer sue the government for this. So they must believe.
Do you think that there's more records, or do you feel you've gotten everything attached to this event that you're going to receive? Have you been given any indication there's more?
I don't know exactly what's been withheld. The one thing that I do see in the records that were released to me is something called an event support agreement, which appears to be an additional contract between the city or the Alamodome and WWE. I do have like 2 or 3 pages of that. It seems to be more than 2 or 3 pages. So, I mean, we would have to look through the letter, the July 25th Attorney General letter, because they're talking about certain things we're going to let the lawsuit decide. Certain things can be withheld under certain exemptions. Certain things do have to be released, which apparently they were. What else could I really gain here, or what other information is there? I'm not sure, but I feel like we have the whole story, at least as far as like the initial story of like what was the Royal Rumble, what was the price of the Royal Rumble in 2023? What did the Alamodome pay the city, etc. Is there more of a story in terms of why were they trying to withhold and what are they trying to withhold? Maybe, but I feel like we have most of the story now.
I think in time you could have, this. So many people are going to see graphics of the US map over the next few months, and it's going to be divided into red and blue. I think there could be a Wrestlenomics version that is either states that are green or red to determine transparency when it comes to their local governments and
Well,
event coordinators when it comes to
I would expect
transfer of information.
you're going to have a pretty strong correlation between the red states and those that are transparent when it comes to public information, public records law. Florida and Texas have very strong public records laws, as I have learned, especially Florida in recent times. And I think that's maybe it's just a more libertarian philosophy that does coincide with really strong transparency about the philosophy that these are the people's records, and there should be very few hurdles in the way of the people being able to obtain those records and review them for themselves and to judge whether or not their government is doing a good job. Yeah, I want to say too, this what's the point of all this? It's to get transparency. Why? Because it should lead to fairer pricing. WWE was very eager to withhold this information, apparently to its own economic benefit.
These are
Why
public
shouldn't
funds at their core. Like, I think if you're a Texas citizen, like, yeah, maybe securing a Royal Rumble event is not your number one priority, but I think it is at least transparent for you, the taxpayer, of just getting a sense of what goes into these shows that are being brought, and that you are going to be hit with marketing and promotional material, and knowing, how is an event like the Royal Rumble affecting my local economy if I am in and around the San Antonio area.
Yeah, I just want to be very clear that this isn't like I think a lot of WWE diehards who are embroiled in a tribal war think that I was like trying to dig up something scandalous, and that's not my expectation or intent. My intent is to drive for transparency so that we know what these events are worth, and we are getting a fairly clear picture about okay, WrestleMania is worth a lot. We see WrestleMania worth somewhere around 5 million. That's what Las Vegas is reportedly paying. We see that the Royal Rumble is about 500,000. SummerSlam is a few 100,000, maybe 300,000. We don't have a very recent example of SummerSlam, but we've got one from several years back in 2021 that was 330. So we're getting kind of an idea. And then there's these international events that are sort of in between. They're definitely not Royal. They're definitely not WrestleMania, but they are worth more than even the Royal Rumble, where we've got Puerto Rico paying 1.5 million in cash, and then some in-kind value on top of that. You've got the Cardiff show overseas paying, it looks like $2.8 million, according to basically what they implied in their press release. So why shouldn't governments who are using taxpayer dollars get a fairer deal rather than a less fair deal? I think that's an important thing to have out there. And I think it's something that investors are benefited to know how much money, how much revenue is to be able to gain here. How much of an opportunity really is this? While Mark Shapiro talks about how big of an opportunity it is, well, we're getting a clearer idea of that.